Morning, everyone. Check, check. Make sure that my sound is working. Everything good. Welcome to the stream, everybody. I'm Effie, your friendly neighborhood painter, and today we are going to be painting and working on this booktube cover, which is slowly, but steadily chugging along. I think the last time that I streamed for you guys was maybe a month and a half ago, or a month ago, and there's a lot that's happened since then, both like personal life and painting life, I guess. So I'm happy to update you guys on the process of this painting. I think today we're just going to do a let's just paint straight up. We're not gonna do any character sketches today unless you want to. I can definitely move that, but I think it'll be really good for the painting to just hang out here for a while and chat and catch up with everybody. Good morning, Chrysanthemum. My autocorrect is going to like that. Mr. Limebaum, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you here. Jensen, welcome. Cajun Corey, good to see you again. Yeah, okay, 2 months ago. So a lot has happened. My music is a bit loud. I'm just gonna lower that. 2 months is a long time. So one big thing that's happened is that I've actually moved studio. I don't think you guys can tell from here, but it's a different space. It's a much bigger space, and I can see the mountain from where I'm sitting. So that's pretty cool. I have a much better view and much better light in this studio. My former landlord told me maybe a month before that she was selling the place, so we had to scramble and move everything, pack everything, and find this place. Fortunately, it's in the same building, which is really nice because I got my kids upstairs, and then I can just come here and work. So it's awesome. It's very cozy. I've got my tea today, decaf tea, which is kind of like what's the point, but it helps with it helps to settle in to the studio vibe to have tea. So that's happened. What else? I'm 7 months pregnant now, so I'm getting really big. I'm waddling like a penguin. I'm starting to get to that stage where it's hard to bend and do things. So we only got a couple months to go before my new baby is here, and that's exciting, very exciting. So today, for the painting, I wanted to work a little bit on the ocean. I want to render this a little bit, give it some love. I'm not quite sure what it looked like the last time I streamed. I think it was very different, and I want to add some dimension. I want to start rendering this character here. I like to call him Groot, but I know he's not Groot. Yeah, thank you, Chrisanth. It was a scramble, but it's worth it. It was actually it was kind of a blessing in disguise to have to move and then get to find this awesome place. So we'll just go ahead and get to it. You guys have any questions about what's happened with the painting so far? Feel free to let me know in chat. I think I'll warm up the painting just by rendering the ocean a little bit. So I'm gonna make a normal layer, Photoshop. Got my trusty brushes here. Got an oil painting brush, which is a mixer brush, and a blending brush, which I kind of use interchangeably. Like I change between them very frequently. Yes, Chrysanthemum, I'm definitely glad to be doing something that isn't a cave. This was a really good assignment because I did a lot of studying of romantic landscape painters for this painting. So I'm actually learning a lot by doing this outdoor scene. Second. I think I'll start with the wet blender. Sample all layers. And I really like this brush that I'm using. It's called Kyle's Impressionist blender. It's got a little bit of a heavy hand, but it does very good painterly effects. So it's not a very subtle brush, but it's really good for these kind of landscapey type areas. A little bit harder for detail work like the characters, but for waves and rocks, it's really good. Just going to switch between those and this wet blender, which is a little bit more subtle. Just smooth out those edges a little bit. And we'll work on this for a little while. It's Monday morning and I'm decaffeinated, so I need to get my brain into the painting space. Rory the Romulan says, looks like a human priest with a Dunmer sorcerer, wizard fighter, and some kind of monster with a dragon on an island, and some kind of tardigrade monster on the shore. Yes, it is a little tardigrade-like, I guess. Those are called broody poos, and they are hilariously disgusting semi-aquatic creatures that startle easily, and when they are startled, unleash a defensive mechanism of super slimy goo on the unlucky recipient. I think they're funny. They're hilarious, Christian. It's hard to find a creature that's both adorable and disgusting. But I think we found it with the Rudy Poos. So I'm going to get most of the blending. I want to get the softest parts of this ocean here in the background where the detail kind of gets a little bit mushy. I'm going to allude to that atmospheric perspective. And as you recede into the distance, the lines get more and more compressed. That's one of the clues that everything is receding into the distance, which is actually very tricky with this piece because, as you can see, there's a giant tree, and the tree is obviously a magic tree, and it's way bigger than, it's kind of difficult to believe the island can support it. It's so big. But it was very important to have other clues in the image to so you would get that read that it was a big tree far away and not a normal sized tree close up. That was one very tricky thing about this painting. the way that I tried to accomplish that was multiple things. It's in the background, which is very desaturated. And there is a castle, ruins of a castle next to it for scale. The castle didn't have to be there, but it really helps you to read instantly, like, oh, this is a giant tree. And then the third thing was, of course, the compression of the waves as they recede into the distance. So just general perspective on the waves. So hold a second. I'm getting a little blown out. Yeah, auto exposure on my webcam doesn't work. It's just always like way overexposed, and I don't know why, so I had to set it manually, but the light's gonna change. So apologies for that technical difficulty. Just a little bit. Okay. Need to be careful not to overblend. Make everything look too uniform. Because I really want to get, I'm trying to emulate oils in a digital medium. So I want there to be some very obvious paint strokes here in the ocean. Thanks, Jensen. Yeah, while we're painting today, there will be times when I just go really quiet because like 90% of my mental RAM is just going to be like figuring out the shape of something. Or how the light is hitting this particular thing. Usually, actually, after a day of painting, I've been focusing so much that I'm actually really tired, even though I've just been sitting all day. Like my brain glucose has been used up. So I can really only paint for about 5 hours max. After 5 hours, I'm tapped out, even with breaks. And I'll show you guys later when I'm painting the character. This particular stage is when I'm really trying to figure out not approximations, but the actual shape of things. So it's kind of like the render engine is in high gear in my brain. Hopefully you guys are also relaxing at home with maybe a cup of tea, maybe some music in the background. Now we paint our happy little trees. I think it would probably be the same for Chrysanth, to answer your comment, like for any kind of really creative project, making music or other forms of art. I'm not sure. Architecture. There are parts of the painting that are really brain intensive, and then parts where I can just kind of coast. And usually I don't listen to anything. I can't listen to anything with words for most of the painting. Let me shore up this edge on the boat here because it's a little bit murky. But there are some parts of the painting where I'm on autopilot enough. Like if it's kind of the later stages and I'm kind of just adding detailing or texture to a big area, like the ocean or trees or something, when I actually can put on an audiobook and I can kind of zone out a little bit. A little bit. And sometimes, actually, if I don't know where to get started or I'm thinking too much, Then I actually put on an audiobook and I kind of let myself go on autopilot for a little while just to kind of get out of my own head. Switch to the wet blender. Kind of try to fan out this dark shape here. I was looking a little bit, like it had a little bit too hard of an edge. I'm probably going to go back and hit this ocean a couple times. Until I feel happy with it. Right. I think the last time I streamed, this was still an underpainting. I didn't actually finish the underpainting. I just decided part of the way that I don't need to take the underpainting any further, and I just started adding color. Which I think was the right move. Oh my gosh. Been painting on the wrong layer, you guys. Oh, I hate it when that happens. No. Okay, that's all right. Oh, I hate it when that happens. Well, let's try that again. Actually, what I'm going to do is, this is super easy. I'm just going to copy and paste the part I painted on. It's a normal layer. I'm just going to merge it with the layer I was painting on, and then delete whatever was on the border layer. Clear that. Much better. That happens once in a while. This is supposed to be a blender. Why aren't you blending? There we go. Tea break. One of my biggest inspirations for the feel of this painting is a romantic painter by the name of Caspar David Friedrich. He has a very famous painting, which I think a lot of you will probably recognize, which is a man with his back turned standing on a rock looking at the mountains. And despite the fact that they were painted in the 1800s, a lot of his paintings look as if they were almost modern in their sensibility. I pulled my color palette from what I think his color palette would be. So I can actually pull it up right now. This is the color palette that I've been using, and I actually mix my own colors digitally because I think it's way easier to get consistency in colors if you mix your own. And I mix them all from just these 6 colors. 2, 3. These 6 colors appear. Yellow ochre, these are earth tones. Raw umber, burnt sienna, ivory black, ultramarine blue, and titanium white. So every single one of these colors was mixed from these 6 colors with a digital oil painting brush. And of course, that's actually very common with a lot of these old paintings because, for one, they didn't have a lot of colors at their disposal. Pigments were expensive and they were hard to get. Many of them had to grind their own pigments. So a lot of the so-called color in these paintings doesn't come from having different paints. It comes from very subtle shifts in the tonal relationships between colors, nearby colors. Good night, Cajun Corey. I take this character here, for example. He's wearing these scarlet robes. And the color that I used for this wasn't really a straight alizarin crimson. It was a alizarin crimson. It was actually more one of these brown colors mixed with a little bit of the crimson. But because it is next to these very desaturated, I should say, greenish grays, it looks very saturated and very red next to them. Guys, we'll move on to the character in just a bit. I'm pretty happy with how with some of the smoothing that I've done on here. Yeah, Jensen, there wasn't just arsenic used as paint back in the day. There were a lot of terrible toxic chemicals used. Lead white. Artists don't use lead white anymore. Maybe some do, but I definitely don't. And then when mixing those pigments, say, you'd mix the dry pigments in with a binder, and a lot of those pigments would float up in the air, get lodged in your lungs, and then you suddenly have internal lead poisoning. So that's not fun. Don't do that. Yeah, Rory the Romulan. That's a common problem for a lot of beginner artists. It's actually very uncommon to see those super saturated colors in nature and in scenery. If you look all around you, there will be some things that are very, very bright, but for the most part, most tones in nature and in our surroundings are somewhere kind of in the middle. They land in neutral territory. So one one part of training your eye and your sensibilities as an artist is to not assign in your brain objects their perceived color. So say, oh, somebody mentioned blueberries. Like, the blueberries are blue, therefore I have to pick this very saturated blue. Well, they're kind of blue, but it also depends on the light. The atmosphere and the lighting that the blueberries are in plays an enormous role in the color of the blueberries in the image. And the atmosphere affects everything around it as well. So nothing is nothing no none of these colors exist in isolation. And if you zoom in on a still life of one of these paintings, one of these old paintings, and you use the eyedropper tool, you'll be really surprised at the color things actually are. What might look blue to you, very blue to you, might actually just be a kind of a cool, dark gray. Your brain fills in a lot of the detail. All right, I'm gonna move on. Let's go to the character. I'm in danger of overpainting. Just get a couple. I've made a couple of these passages think a little bit too smooth, so I'm going to just like rough it up a little bit. just a little bit more about the palette. If you look at some of Caspar David Friedrich's work, these warm tones here that I've mixed up, he keeps those exclusively for areas of interest, like lighting in the sky, or like a character lit by a candle or something like that. So these very, very warm tones are almost used exclusively to catch your eye. Everything else is neutral or cool or warm, but they can be quite dark. So that's what I was trying to do. I was really trying to emulate that in this painting. Mm-hmm. Jensen, there was actually something that I heard about. I forget the culture that it was, but it was many, many ages ago. Some languages didn't even have a separate category for blue. Blues were what we now consider blues were actually a kind of a category of green. Because it was such an uncommon color in nature. Which sounds very strange to me. To me, they look so different, but yeah, some of our color perception is actually cultural. And I think the color orange, the word orange didn't actually exist in the English vocabulary until a couple hundred years ago. Up until then, orange was considered part of the red family. It was like a yellow red. But then oranges. This would have been, in Europe, maybe around 1600s or something like that. Suddenly oranges, the fruit, came into society by trade, and people started naming the color after the fruit. Yeah. So now orange has its own separate category. Whoops, don't paint on that. Okay. So now I might get a little quiet here, guys, as I figure out where to start with this guy. So I'm painting on a screen layer. I labeled it white screen, and I'm on 75% opacity, so it's not completely opaque. And I'm actually just going to be using a hard round brush. It's a very, very simple brush. Up until now, a lot of my shapes have been approximations. So this is and I've already done this with the other characters here. With some of the other characters here. But I'm going to really try to get the shape of things and the light of things. Basically by painting in light. So this is also an old master's technique. You paint in light and shape at the same time. Light and detail, because that's how light actually works in the real world. Light defines the shape of things and the texture of things. And if it looks a little bit At first it looks a little bit harsh because this is not the final lighting. I'm going to be painting color on top of this light and then doing the process again to further refine it. Some of these shapes are very murky because I haven't 100% defined them yet. Like these branches on the character's head are a little bit, a little bit blurry. It's kind of hard to tell what's part of what. But we're going to fix that with this pass. Rain 28PH. Sorry you had that experience with a bad art teacher. I had a very similar experience in high school with a bad dance teacher. And I love to dance. But it took a while after that experience for me to want to dance again. Sometimes a bad teacher can really ruin your love of something, but don't let that stop you from exploring art. I'm gonna start 20% opacity, 30% flow. Zoom in a little bit. This guy is getting a little bit of light from the summon, from Godwin's summon here. But most of his light is actually coming from ambient sources like the sky. He's going to be overpainted a little bit for this stage. But in the end, the light coming on this side will be darker than this light. I wasn't sure I finished my thought on painting in white. Painting light and detail at the same time. But this is a very old technique, and the old masters would simply paint this in a titanium white, or they'd scrape off layers of paint to reveal the white canvas underneath to do the same thing. So you can see what a difference that makes right away. That edge is just kind of it's illuminated, and you can immediately tell much better what it is. I'm not going to go to the face yet because I'm trying to boot my brain up into tree mode. He's got these thorns. The textured characters are a lot of fun to paint. I had a really good time painting the scales on this lizard guy. Forgive me, Rudy. I forget the I forget the names of some of these characters. In my head, it's like lizard guy and Groot and Godwin. Godwin is easy to remember. I'm constantly zooming in and out. And where it turns into shadow, careful not to overpaint there because mysterious shadows are very important. You don't want to reveal everything. Sometimes I will turn this into clear mode and actually erase. Okay. This actually needs to be darker. 100%. So you can paint in details, but you can also paint out the details. But I'm also not going to try to get every single detail in there because this is just the first pass of this painting in light. So for the most part, what I'm trying to do is get the general form of things, maybe some texture. Nutmeg, that's his name. The legendary monk. That's his name. This character is really fun because his form is very anatomical. Like I'm basically painting wood and vines in the position and direction that muscles and muscle fibers would be going. So it's a little bit like doing an anatomical drawing. It's one of those areas where it's gotten a little bit murky. See, I've put green here, but I'm actually not sure. I'm actually not sure what this area here is supposed to be. Often I will just go back to the clavicle. I think that this here is that muscle that runs from the back of your head to your clavicle. So let's feel that out. So in many ways, this first pass of white is the most thinking intensive. Because you really are just defining the shapes of things and making decisions on what things actually are. And then subsequent cycles of this process would just add detail and texture. So I'm going to start defining the head, starting with the cheeks. It seems to have a little knot right here in the center of his head. So I can kind of work out from there. I'm looking at my character reference sheet here on the computer screen. Let's go down to I'm going down to 30% opacity so I can define some of these woody forms a little bit more. And his nose is kind of like, it's not really a nose, it's more like a plateau. His face is almost a carving. Reminds me a little bit of like a carving you'd see on the prow of a ship. And if it looks a little bit too carved, well, I can always add some more woody texture later. Now, Erudia, I think he is, actually. I really enjoy drawing natural textures, especially tree bark. So this guy combines combines anatomy and tree textures, which is super fun. And he just looks super cool. Look at that face. Yeah, he's awesome. I really enjoy him. I think that this green is actually, let's define that a little bit. I think that's could be a tree branch protruding from the back of his head a little bit. I'm going to just allude to that a little bit. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, looks pretty good. Welcome, Frost. Good to see you again. Now I'm trying to figure out. Oh, you know what? Let's do something very important. Let's rotate the image because I will see inconsistencies or warping in the face that I didn't see before. Yep, always happens. So now I'm going to see that the arch of this eye is a little bit higher than this one. So what I'm going to do actually is on this normal layer underneath, I'm going to paint a correction. Let's do 100%. So that it looks more even. See that? It happens all the time. This is so much trickier to do when you're working traditionally. So I actually have a mirror next to my desk, and I have to hold my painting up to it. It's not as easy as just flip horizontal. And then I can actually see as well. Let's go back to white. This white screen layer, I want the bridge of the nose to be a little bit more like that. See? It's part of what I would imagine would be his skull here. So that was missing. I wanted to find the chin a little bit more. Maybe put some knots in there so it looks more woody. Erudia, I am very fortunate to have you here to defend my delicate sensibilities. Yeah, I like having this kind of knotted appearance here for the chin. It's almost like a cleft chin. Let's add a little branch coming out here to insinuate an eyebrow. See how that looks. And this part here is a little bit murky, so I'm just gonna think for a minute. Which branch is and what the actual structure of that is. You guys are mentioning that Nutmeg is the thorny type, which means we're going to have to add a lot more thorns to his body. I've got a couple here, but maybe I can add some on. We can add some on the head. Right now, I'm going to try to even out these shapes a little bit. This shape here is going to merge with this one. That's what I was trying to figure out. If this branch was behind the one on the nose bridge or it's part of it. little bit confusing here because of the shield, but I can kind of erase a bit, give that a little bit more clarity. I'm going to try to define the eyes a little bit better. Eyes are always super tricky because they are the windows to the soul, so people pay very close attention to eyes. So you've got to get the shape right. The shape of this one was a little bit uneven, so let's even those up just a bit. Faces and hands, you guys. If you're going to paint a character, there's a lot you can fudge, but when it comes to painting faces and hands, you can always tell an artist's skill level by how well he or she renders those. So I will spend a lot of time making sure those are right. Let me flip him over again, because my brain has already gotten used to what I'm painting. Let's go here to my normal layer and paint a little bit of shadow under these new eyebrows, just so that looks like a little bit more of a solid form. jaw needed a little bit of evening out too. Let's go to 30%. Define this a little bit more, and because this edge is a little bit murky, I'm actually going to go back to my normal layer and paint the background around it so it feels a little bit clearer. And just sample from the colors around. See, that looks better already. Back to my screen layer. And 30%. Maybe smooth this plane out a little bit. Now I've got this area that's a little bit confusing to me. I want to get the indication of a skull in there so you can really see the shape of the head. I'm not quite sure what this is back here. It's a little bit too similar in shape to this branch, so I'm actually going to paint it out. Let's paint that out. Might repaint it coming out a little bit like this. So that it looks a little bit more distinct. It's interesting. Ah, I painted this on the wrong normal layer. It happened again. All right, there we go. Let's delete that. That's why it wasn't painting. Can we even have this really dark black, almost black color? Just to kind of define that a little bit. While I'm at it, I'm just going to clean up this edge here on the boat because it's making it, I need to get a clearer silhouette. Yeah, that looks better. Let's darken that. Add a little bit of shadow here to define that branch a little bit. All right, cool. Now I'll go back with my white on this white screen layer. Add some form and light to this branch. It's a little bit dark here under the nose, so let me just lighten that up a little bit. Command save. Always save when you think about it. All right, let me start on this arm here. We've got about 15 minutes left of the stream. I think we've got some really good painting done together today. First, I'll make the big form, the white. Like that. Erase out some of the occlusions. Get a little bit more detail. I'm just going to erase out a little bit. I think this area here needs a little bit more definition. Go down to 30%, but it's a kind of in a darker area, so I don't want to make it too light. These are like his ribs. So I'm going to follow that form. Erase out a little bit. to get an indication of this other muscle. Well, on him it would be a twig or a branch, but this other anatomical feature. And a little bit of the neck as well. I'm going to go into clear mode, and maybe 20%. And actually, erase out or darken some of this as well. Like here. You see a little bit more of the form. I haven't paid attention to you guys in a while. Rude, I don't worry about having pirates in the audience. They're a rowdy bunch, but they're really fun. I agree with you, Jenna Fury. I'm one of your ranks, but I'll keep things rated G for the sake of my kids watching. But I do appreciate the humor. It's not lost on me. Promise. try to, in the last 10 minutes, I'll try to hit up some of these muscles in the legs. And then we'll probably call it for the day. Trying to remember it. I've got a really great like anatomical model over there, but it would involve me standing up, which is hard for me to do right now. So I'm gonna look at this reference image of nutmeg. So I think the artist who did that, he did a really great job. Did a really great job on these muscle groups here. And I can always tweak it later. %. Actually, really quickly, I'm just going to look up these muscle groups. Muscles. There we go. So we have here, this would be the rectus femoris. Which seems to attach to the knee. Has, I think the attachment points would be, I get so nerdy about anatomy, you guys. It's so interesting. And it actually makes everything easier to understand it rather than just guessing. So here's a rectus femoris here. That's like the big quad muscle you feel when you squat. And then coming out underneath on the sides here is this, it's called the vastus medialis. So it lies underneath this big femoris muscle and kind of goes here. So I'm just going to indicate these really generally. And I'll go later on and refine these shadows a little bit more, but I just want to know the general form here. And I think this muscle runs from the back of the knee to the groin. I think that's called the gracilis muscle, and it would be kind of hard to see here, but kind of like this. So now we can do the same thing on the other side. Gracilis. The rectus femoris. would be this kind of big mass here. And then a muscle group that is directly underneath that. Vastus medialis on this side. And vastus lateralis on the other side. You might be right, Chrysanth. I know that the gracilis muscle is somewhere in the legs, but it might also be the sartorius. Sassy Witch. Sassy Witch wants to see the Rudy Poos. Let's zoom out for a second and show her. They need a little bit more definition, but yes, here are the Rudy Poos. Squawking to get away. Such charming little creatures. So those are still, I would say, like, if these characters are at stage, like the first round of rendering, then these guys are maybe like 0.7. So I've got to hit them up with the white light, but they're very dark. I mean, they're in the shadow, so I really want to be very subtle there. I'll just take a couple more minutes. I'm gonna finish up these leg muscles, and then we can stop there for the day. A little bit of shadow here for where the cloth meets. It's an occlusion here. All right. So here's where we landed today. A really good painting session overall. This is what the characters looked like before I did the white layer. So you can see I have some of the basic values and colors that are going to be there, but none of the precision yet. So added in this white layer, and it's very, very bright, but in subsequent painting sessions I will darken them down because I really want the foreground to be quite dark. Still readable, but quite dark, because these characters are passing from shadow into light. It's called contre-jour lighting, when the foreground is dark. So that's where we are for today. Where were the Romulan? Are the porgs? The creatures from Star Wars? The like weird penguin things? I haven't thought about those for a long time, but I actually don't remember what they said. Thank you all. very much for joining me today. It was a wonderful painting session, very relaxed. And now that I'm settled in my new studio, hopefully we can do another painting session sooner rather than later. I'd like to get in at least one or two more before my baby comes. Because after baby comes, I'm going to be out for a while. One final command save. I'll keep on work. I'm gonna go get some breakfast now and then come back to the studio and keep painting for another couple of hours. I can't wait to finish this one for you guys. Okay. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening over there on the other side of the world. I think most of you guys are probably in the US and Canada, maybe a couple in Europe. Good night from or goodbye from Thailand. Have an awesome day. Bye.